Picking up shortly after the series' first season, Invincible returns with a truncated Part 1 that was split for creative reasons, but ought to have been allowed to play out to its full conclusion. The first 4 episodes of Season 2 air weekly on Prime Video starting November 3, with the next batch of 4 set to premiere sometime next year. And while the continuing adventures of Invincible Mark Grayson feature occasional emotional heft, they can't help but feel scattered in their construction. Still, the strengths of these episodes rival the gut-churning anvil that was dropped on us in last season's finale, which saw the half-human, half-Viltrumite hero Mark used as a battering ram to kill civilians before being beaten to a pulp by his turncoat alien father, the ruthless Nolan Omni-Man. With Omni-Man having fled the planet, Mark and his mother Debbie are left to deal with the ensuing emotional crater. This makes for a remarkably effective through line across all 4 episodes, especially as far as Debbie is concerned. As a human, her only outlets for dealing with superpowered problems can't help but feel hopeless and insignificant. As for Mark, who struggles between rejecting his genocidal father and becoming him, his latent anger compels him to jump back into the superhero fold under the watchful eye of Cecil Stedman and the Global Defense Academy, or GDA. However, Mark's inner circle, his girlfriend Amber, his superhero pal Samantha Adam Eve, and his best friend William can't help but feel perfunctory. Creator Robert Kirkman and the show's writers and directors are adept at translating Mark's internal dilemmas into action and silent montages. But they often feel the need to repeat themselves by depicting entire conversations between Mark and the supporting cast that only serve to vocalize themes that were already expressed elsewhere. Truncating this season also leads to a lack of clear direction, though this may end up looking different in hindsight. On one hand, Invincible quickly expands in scope, with a greater focus on the large universe these characters occupy and an emphasis on the wider ripple effects of Mark and Nolan's climactic battle, which has implications on both sides of a major ongoing conflict among the stars. However, the happenings back on Earth feel distorted in their assembly. A new anti-hero enters the fray in the form of Angstrom Levy, a hyper-intelligent enigma with dimension-hopping powers, who offers us glimpses into alternate realities which, in theory, ought to pose questions for Mark since they mirror his dilemma in several key ways. However, this multiverse concept is something few other characters interact with, if they're made aware of it at all. Its usefulness in the comics is crystal clear, and it appears the show might eventually head in a similar direction, but by the end of episode 4, it's left dangling in midair without a clear emotional or narrative purpose. Other major developments draw straight from the comics in deeply affecting ways, from the larger extraterrestrial goings-on to the question of what became of Omni-Man after he fled from Earth. But as far as the larger ensemble goes, supporting heroes like Rex Splode Duplicate, Robot, and so on, their emotional entanglements and training woes feel slight in comparison. Their subplots arise only a handful of times per episode, even if that, before disappearing for lengthy stretches. It's a wildly unstructured season compared to its predecessor, which had a much tighter focus on bringing the stories of individual characters to fruition, and more carefully carved out space for each of them. What remains intact is the penchant for gore, and this time, it's rarely presented with the tonal disconnect of Season 1's initial episodes. Invincible took a while to find itself and establish its relationship to existing comic superhero tropes. And though its send-ups of existing Marvel and DC characters still feel a tad malformed, all the things Invincible wants to convince you it isn't. The show is much more sure-footed about what it is, with emotional pivots that play out at the extremes of silence and uninhibited anguish, and are all made to feel part of the same fabric. It also helps that the performances are markedly improved pretty much across the board. The actors in the cast who are more accustomed to live action sound more comfortable with expressing themselves through voice alone, especially Stephen Yeun. Apart from Mark and Debbie's festering grief, explaining the overarching plot of Season 2 Part 1 as anything but a setup for a clearer through line in the next batch of episodes is damn near impossible. However, its emotional high points, usually through wordless montage, make it a worthwhile continuation, even though the show is yet to fully return to form.